So welcome everybody and welcome back to the podcast. This is episode number 2. This one we're giving the glorious title of Tax Tech and the highlights of 2023. And as per usual, you can get our podcasts on the usual channels, Spotify, Apple Music and other places. So without further ado, I'm going to introduce our guest. It's very exciting today. We have the boss. We have the CEO of Tax Systems, Bruce Martin, with us. Thank you very much for joining, Bruce. It's really good to have you here.
It's a pleasure. Thank you for having me, Russell.
Good.
Really excited to be here.
So, who are you? Introduce yourself. I mean, I have a fair idea, but tell our listeners who you are.
Well, I'm obviously CEO currently of Tax Systems. Joined the business 2.5 years ago as CFO. And before that, I worked with various different sort of finance roles across big multinationals as well as private equity-backed software. So that's me. Originally from South Africa. I'm sure most people can hear my accent and will pick that one out. Sometimes get mistaken for being Australian because I think my first name, Bruce, is a bit of a giveaway. But yeah, so that's it. That's me.
Good stuff. So this is the festive episode. So before we get into any of the real heavy content today, not that there will be any, but what does Christmas look like in the household? We're a week and a half away. What's going on?
I mean, I've got 3 young daughters, so nice. It's absolute chaos at the moment. Lots of elf on the shelf shenanigans and things like that going on. So for us, it's always, a real family time for us. It's not always that for everybody else. But for us, it's a, exciting time for the kids. And what we try and do in our house is actually make the joy of giving, just as important as the joy of receiving. So that's always a big thing. But the actual day of Christmas, we spend with my father, my sister's family, my wife's mother and father and brother. So very much family oriented around Christmas for us. But as I say, we're in a really privileged position to enjoy Christmas. It's not always a great time of year for everybody, but for us, we use it as a time of reflection and a time to recharge our batteries after what's been a pretty busy year.
Just out of interest, what's on the table on Christmas Day? And do you do the cooking, or is that outsourced?
No. So we are hosting at our place this year. So we will have, again, South African heritage, lots of meat.
Nice.
Which I will cook, but I will barbecue or braai.
Amazing.
So they'll go into the Weber actually in the kettle braai, and then all the usual trimmings and things that go on. I have been banned from doing my traditional, I like to do my own version of pigs in blankets, which is just like proper big sausages with lots of bacon on.
Oh,
but my wife said not this year. We've got too much stuff.
Nice. Well, I mean, it's probably a good thing, maybe. As you said, 2023, quite a busy year. It's a bit of an understatement. What's it been like for you?
Look, I agree. It's absolutely flown by. It's been a crazy year. I think personally, just to touch on the personal side for a moment, I've had my eldest daughter, Grace, successfully navigate the highs of primary school and settle nicely into secondary school, which is obviously a blessing. You always want your kids to transition well into new surroundings. So it's been awesome. Julia, our 6-year-old, is now an avid reader, and she likes to read loads of fact books and take notes about the facts that she really wants to remember, which I think is quite kind of mind-blowing for a 6-year-old. And then Alexandra, our youngest, is kind of readying herself for school, and she's really frustrated that she can't read and write yet like her big sisters. So, for us, it's been a busy year from a kid's perspective, but from a work perspective, it's been a lot of fun. And when you're having a lot of fun at work, time tends to fly by. And no doubt we'll get into more detail about what we've done in 2023. But for me, it's been a lot of fun. And with a lot of fun, that time just seems to disappear.
Yeah, it has. It's definitely absolutely flown by. I was trying to think back as to what we were up to, this time last year, and it was quite different. We've done so much stuff this year. It's been a real learning curve in a lot of, new ways, obviously, for me, and I'll talk a bit more about AI later, of course. Wouldn't be a wouldn't be a podcast with me without at least a brief mention of it. But certainly that has, amongst other things, that's changed the game. So I guess as a business, from a business point of view, what's changed within kind of about Tax Systems in 2023 or in the last 12 months? What's your reflections on that?
I guess I would say we've listened a lot. So we've spent a copious amounts of time with our customers. really listening to what their pain points are, what they really need from our products. And the outcome of all that listening has meant we have been able to really focus down on key products that will really make a difference for our customers. And I know we're going to be launching some of those in the early part of next year. One of them being AI powered, Russell, which is super exciting. So I think a lot of listening and understanding of our customers' processes and their pain points. The second one, I think internally, we've really transformed our operational side of our business. And what I mean by that is, it's no surprise that we've been on a cloud journey. And what that journey has meant is that actually we've needed to change our operational cadence around simple things like releases of product, where typically we'd release alpha tax twice a year. Now it's a good cadence around monthly releases. It's small things like that, but those are big movements for a company that has been always used to just doing things twice a year. Actually gearing that up to do it monthly has been a huge shift. So that shift towards a SaaS mentality, and we've definitely made great strides on that in 2023. And then I think the last thing, thirdly, is we've grown as a business. And, one of the big strategic, visions that I and collectively the leadership team and our investors have had for the business is to actually spread the wings of the company, take it out, broaden our product set, take us into other geographical locations. And I'm sure we'll talk about it later, but that was actually delivered through an acquisition that we made last year. And that will be a strong growth lever for our business in the future.
Yeah, no, that's definitely something we're going to get your take on very shortly. So I'm looking forward to that as well, because I'm interested to hear what that's been like, because obviously that's been in the works for a few months. And as you say, just in fact earlier this week was announced, and by the time we publish this out on the wider airwaves, it will be a week or two old. But certainly already, I'm seeing loads of people asking questions about what does this mean and what does that do and how does that change for business. It's really, really exciting time. So, okay, let's kind of flip that around. What's the one thing we haven't done this year that you think we should have done or you would have liked to have done?
I thought this was supposed to be an easy enough conversation, Russell.
No,
I wasn't expecting these tough questions. Look, I think as a business, you always want to make efficient uses of your finite resources. So whether that be people, cash, you got to navigate market headwinds. There's lots to think about. But I think being the kind of person I am, I wouldn't say there's anything that we haven't done that I wanted to do. I would just say I would have liked to have done some of those things a little bit faster.
Yeah, it's always a challenge.
But again, that's just kind of my nature. I like to deliver and execute. So if we can do that faster, I'm always happier.
Yeah, fair enough. I think that's a great shout. And as you know, I'm of a similar mindset. Just get it out. Ship it. Customers will be fine. It's probably good we have a few checks and balances around the place, right?
Super important. Yeah, super important, Russell. Yeah, absolutely.
So tax model. Let's talk tax model. So we bought a business. Take us through the journey. What's your insider kind of scoop from the position that you've been in? It would be really interesting. And I'll probably ask a few follow-ups on that.
Yeah, sure. Look, just to provide a bit of context around the reasoning of the acquisition, this will certainly accelerate our strategy to create a leading international mid-market tax compliance software platform, really focused on building out regional specific products, which we already have, and then multi-regional tax compliance solutions that can, go cross-border. So international tax focus. The acquisition of tax model will expand our non-UK revenues to over 25% of group revenues, which is amazing, and will really enable us to increase the depth and breadth of the solutions we can offer our current customers. And again, back to the earlier point, the listening point has been super important. A lot of our customers have been asking for the products that tax model bring to the party for a long time now. And so I think this is just testament to the work we are doing in listening and then delivering for our customers. And I think that will be super important building out that cloud platform in the future. And I think it's important to mention that we have a very good investor in Bowmark Capital who have been really supportive on this journey with us. you don't always get that. So, I'm super thankful for Beaumark's support as well.
Nice. And then, so like a few people around the business, I've met Hank, who's their CEO and founder, absolutely nailed on, future podcast guest for sure.
Absolutely. Yeah,
so
yeah,
it'd be good.
yeah.
We'll definitely get him on. But what it's been like working with him, obviously he's he founded the business, over 10 years ago, and has been with that business from true sort of startup to scale up to where they are now. What's it been like working with Hank pretty closely, I imagine, over the last few months?
The great thing about the Dutch is that they're very direct, and that really works well for me being South African. So Hank and I really kind of hit it off really well from the start, because we had really frank and honest and open conversations from my first meeting with him in Den Bosch about 7 months ago. So, for me, he's born and raised in international tax compliance, and he is a real thought leader in the field. So he's going to be super important around our product strategy, business strategy table, and really adding useful insights and useful guidance on all things international tax. I mean, he's a lovely man, really family focused. He's built a business that has a very similar culture to tax systems, which means that coming together of two companies, it's going to be really, really easy, because we've got really similar people who look at the world through the same eyes as we do, which is awesome.
Yeah, I think for me, one of the things that I was really, really impressed with is that, as a business, we've always had a big USP around how well we know tax. We've got deep tax experts in our business, people that have been in the business and been in tax for genuinely decades. And that means, what that translates to in the product is really, really deep technical and frankly, perfect treatments of tax. And when immediately I'm spending a bit of time with the guys there, they know tax just as well as we do. There is some real deep expertise in the fields that they're in, and of course complementary fields to what we do in tax systems. So it just works really well. You look around the industry, and of course there's a lot of people that know a lot of stuff, but actually working with people that understand both tax and technology in the same kind of depth that we do has been pretty fascinating. And you always kind of like to sit back and go, oh, that's our secret sauce, we're really good at that. And then you go to another business, you're like, oh, they're really good at that too. So I guess that's a big reason that we wanted to get involved with them, because it's more of that good stuff.
Absolutely right. And I think what we'll have a natural coming together of minds across international jurisdictional tax compliance versus domestic tax, right? So obviously I have a lens of the world from a local domestic tax perspective. They come at a much higher level at going, what does that mean for your international tax compliance requirements? So that natural tension will be really good. We'll extend us, so we'll extend them, and we'll get more quality products out to our customers, which is obviously what we want, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's in a time when, of course, it's only relevant to some of our listeners, but Pillar 2 is top of agendas for a lot of people for a lot of time, and that lens adds another string to our bow, so to speak. So that's really good. Excellent. So what's 2024? Let's move on. Let's cast our eyes forward. What are you most looking forward to 2024?
Look, like for me, we've set a really good foundational base in 2023. We've done a lot of good things that perhaps have gone under the radar, because they are going to be the foundation stones for a really exciting 2024. So for a business that had sort of two core products coming into the year, will be, at the end of Q1 next year, we'll probably have about 6 or 7 core products, which is game changing, frankly. So I am really looking forward to the launch of your AI powered product, Russell. I'm going to call it your product, Russell, because it was your brainchild. So I'm looking forward to seeing the launch of our homegrown products, but also really looking forward to seeing how tax model products are received with our customers. But more importantly, just continuing to service our customers in the way that we do, right? For me, that's a really, really important part of our business and our ethos, and things that we do really, really well, is we should be servicing our customers with good products and supporting them in the best way that we can in order to make their corporation and international tax compliance more joyous than it currently is, especially in the festive season, right? Joyous is a good word for this.
Joyous is a very good season. Maybe we'll add in some form of jingle bells or something, sort of background music to go along with that, and some tinsel on the logo on the podcast as well, something like that, I think. Okay, cool. Well, as you said, I will always talk about AI in some way, shape, or form on one of these things, and you've been in enough meetings with me to know it tends to come up. Not every time, but I am a bit of a broken record, but it's what I like to spend my time doing. And as you say, we're moving that way with the new product in the new year. I think one of the things I just wanted to reference, I'd get your take on, was something I've been reading over the last couple of days, where as an industry, we obviously we work with a lot of developers. Developers suffer. It's a known thing. This isn't just sort of made up LinkedIn random stuff. This is real stuff. They suffer from something they seem to call winter syndrome, which is that we get less code in December. That's clearly people do take more time off because of Christmas and things like that. But generally speaking, there's always something we have to deal with as a business, which is there's a little bit of downtime. So sprint planning changes, and the level of output we get tends to change a little bit in December. And I was reading something on the way here, which was actually talking through that if you ask GPT-4 to write code if it's in December, as in you say it's December and I want you to do this task, it actually writes less code than if you ask it to do the same thing in May. So you're literally giving it the same task, but you're telling it it's December versus May, and there is a statistical difference between how much code it will write if it thinks it's December, which to me is kind of insane because of how that's where's that learned that from. But how does that sit with your brain when you start to think about some of these things?
Less efficient code, right? You could have less code that's working a lot better because
maybe
the guys want to rush up to a Christmas party, so they actually solve the problem in less code. So it's not always a bad thing, but interesting, like super interesting. It can use to replicate personas at different types of the year with different moods and times. I mean, this technology is mind blowing in its ability to do all sorts of different things. Is it kind of hyped up? Is this game changing? Is it are people making too much of the technology? Actually, I don't think so. I think this is properly game changing. And I think most people's lives and their working lives will be affected in a bad way. I actually think in a real positive way. I almost think back to when I first learned about the internet in the 90s. How game changing that was just for, learning and, getting through university and doing school projects and things like that. For me, this is on a similar scale. It's just ramping it up. It's completely game changing. And, for me, I use it regularly, but I use it in a co-pilot sense. It's my assistant as opposed to my absolutes. As an assistant, as something that's supporting you do your job in a better, more efficient way. It really is so valuable.
Yeah.
What do you think about AI, Russell?
What do I think about AI? Well, there's a few things. There's a few things probably, and that's the thing, right? We record these podcasts monthly, so there's a lot of change that happens in a month in the world of generative AI, particularly at the minute.
I'm sure our listeners only want the podcast to be less than 30 minutes, mate. We don't have hours for your your assessment of AI.
Two hopefully pithy statements I think are quite interesting. Firstly, we do have our first. We've always referenced, and I've been to a lot of talks on AI that reference there was a case in New York where some lawyers invented some case law as part of their submission because they used GPT. There's actually now a HMRC reference. So HMRC, somebody on a personal tax matter submitted some totally fictitious case law as part of their personal tax dispute with HMRC. So got him some hot water. But we now have a nice UK relevant case of exactly the same thing of don't just chuck stuff into ChatGPT and assume it's just going to churn out stuff that's fully accurate. So, there's always that kind of be careful and check your work. The other thing I think that's kind of resonated with me more recently with some of the talks and the conferences I've been going to is the way to think about generative AI is one of the ways to think about it, of course, is that imagine back however many years to when Microsoft were quite early on and people didn't really know what an operating system was. Don't view AI as necessarily, it does a lot of different things, but this is the early stages of a new operating system in some people's view. This is something that we need to be very careful with. There have to be guardrails, but fundamentally when you wind the clock forward 10, 20, 30 years, the way that people will operate will be fundamentally underpinned by this technology, but obviously a much more advanced version of the technology. And if we think this stuff's only been out in the ether for a little over a year, it's pretty incredible how far it's come. So I won't wax lyrical any more than that, but it's certainly something I spend lots of time doing, as you know. Last question.
Absolutely.
Last question. Any New Year's resolutions? Anything that you're going to be taking into the new year, as both Bruce at home with the 3 kids, as well as Bruce in the office as the CEO?
To be honest, I'm not a big resolutions guy, right? So I don't typically set resolutions. However, I have one personal thing that I'm really trying to achieve. And I set the goal for myself at the start of this year, and I made good ground in achieving it, but I didn't achieve it. And that's getting into a single figure golf handicap. And I think I moved from 14 to 10.4.
Ooh.
So like really, really close.
Very close.
But there were certain reasons why I didn't spend as much time on the golf course as I would like to this year. So hopefully I can tweak that handicap ever so slightly and get it below 10. So
Nice.
that'll be like a personal one. But again, for me, my view on our business is just to continue pushing the boundaries that we can, but making sure that our employees are, bringing the best versions of themselves to the business. And we can do that as an employer by giving them everything they need in order to be the best versions of themselves at work. And that is unblocking blockers, giving them technology that they need to use, providing, all the resources that they need in order to be as effective as possible. And that for me will always be something I'm striving to unlock and achieve. And that's a result of lots of conversations with employees. You'll know me, Russell. I like that openness and honestness, because we can't change and help our employees if they don't talk to us, which they do a lot. And we'll continue to build a great business for our employees.
Awesome. Well, thank you very much. It's been a real pleasure having you here. Thank you for taking the time. I know you're a busy guy. Lots of maybe afternoon at the golf course coming up. You never know. No, not quite.
Not yet.
It's a bit rainy anyway. You don't want to be out there. You want to be in the nice warm. So thank you very much, everyone, for listening. It's of course it's the last episode of the year, but we will be back in January. We've got quite a few. In fact, we've got a roster of guests lined up for next year already, both internal and external. So got some exciting topics to treat you to in the new year. As I said at the start, you can subscribe and listen to this on a variety of different mediums, I'm told. Spotify, Apple, Google and Amazon, and anywhere else where you might get your podcast. But thank you very much for your time, Bruce, and we'll speak soon.
It's a pleasure. Thanks for having me, and happy holidays to all our listeners.